This is a Microsoft original Xbox. These machines came to market in the US in 2001. Direct competitor with the PlayStation 2. I recently acquired this machine for nothing. It was a throwaway. This machine was discarded by somebody. I have no knowledge of the history of this machine or who it used to belong to. The machine does power up and it tries to work, but it does have a problem. Unfortunately, when I turn this machine on, this is what I get. The dreaded error 16. Now apparently this means that the dashboard files are either missing or corrupted. Now I have no knowledge of the history of this machine. I don't know if any sort of mods have been applied to it. This machine is rather difficult to work on because of Microsoft's policy of locking and unlocking the drives. Now I am completely new to this machine. I've not owned one before, so this is entirely a learning experience for me. Back at the Xbox, we see the power light is flashing red and green. Some people describe this with the acronym FRAG. We'll take a look inside of this machine. The top is held on with just 6 long bolts, and you remove them with a T20 Torx screwdriver. And we've already done that. We'll go ahead and lift the top off. Now inside of our Xbox, we have a single old-fashioned IDE cable, and the end of the cable connects to this 8 gigabyte IDE disk drive, and the other connector to the optical disk drive. Now the disk drive is locked, which means it has to be unlocked with a key. Now the key is stored in the firmware on the EEPROM chip on the system board. When the system is powered up, that key is applied and the disk drive is unlocked, and now you can read from it and write to it. Now this locking of the disk drive makes troubleshooting and repairing difficult because you can't simply remove this disk drive and plug it into another computer and work on it because it's locked. You can't read it. Now one way to obtain that key number is reading it directly off the EEPROM chip itself, and that is possible to do. You have to build a cable. Here's such a cable. This is a cable that you can build yourself. It attaches to the 9-pin serial port on a computer, and the other end, these various wires connect to points on the system board, specifically the serial data and serial clock, as well as a ground cable. Now there are some excellent videos on how to make these cables and how to use them. There's a guy that goes by the pseudonym Slot1Gamer who's made some really great videos. So if you want to know how to make this cable and how to use it, I really refer you to his videos. As you can see, I actually did make one of these cables, and I did use it, and I did read the data on the EEPROM, so I do have the key number. You don't have to do that in order to repair this disk drive. There is a way to access the disk drive. It's called hot swapping, and we're going to demonstrate that. We're going to use a program called XBOXHD Maker. And the version of that program we're going to use is 1.9. It's a program that we write onto a CD, and we can boot a computer with that CD, and then using that computer we can then read this disk drive using a technique called hot swapping. There's a later version of XBOXHD Maker. There's a version 2.2 out there. I did look into it. I couldn't quite understand how to use it. Reading the instructions, it was really rather cryptic, and so I decided to use version 1.9 instead, where the instructions are more clear. Now, it is possible to read information off the disk drive using a technique called FTP. That stands for File Transfer Protocol. And the way that that works is you connect your Xbox to your local area network with an Ethernet cable, and there's an Ethernet port in the back. And if you know the IP address of this device, you can tap directly into this disk drive. You'll need to know the name of the device, and you'll need to know the password of the device. Now, the default in both of those cases is simply Xbox. That's the default device name and password. Now, you can find the device on your network in Windows with a program called ARP. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't do that in this case because it seems that when this device stops at error 16, it doesn't make it to activating its Ethernet port. And so when I put this on my local area network, I simply couldn't see this device at all. If you do want to transfer files in and out on a working machine, I would recommend using a program on the PC side called FileZilla. Using FileZilla and FTP, you can transfer files in or transfer files out between a PC and this device without removing the disk drive. Now, even though I already have the hard drive key number, I'm going to demonstrate how to repair the disk drive with an error 16 without using the key, and instead using this program called XBOXHDM 1.9 and hot swapping. On my computer screen, we have the download here of Xbox Hard Drive Maker version 1.9. You'll get it in a zip format, and right above here we have the unzipped folder. We'll open that up. Within that folder, we have a number of files, including files about how to make an ISO file from these files. You can make an ISO file in a Linux environment or a Windows environment. And then we have a directory here called Linux. When we open the Linux folder, this is what we get. Here we have a couple of good help files, but we get directories called C, E, and F, and these are all empty. And we get one called EEPROM that's also empty. And then we get some sort of abbreviated version of Linux. They call it ISO Linux. On your Xbox hard drive, there will also be partitions called C and E. There might also be one called F. So what we need to do is we need to populate these different directories before we make the ISO file. Now, EEPROM, what goes in here is your EEPROM binary file, which is a 256K file. I have already read the EEPROM on my computer directly using the serial cable. And here it is right here. We're not going to need that immediately, but it is a good thing to have. What are we going to put in, C and E? We need to get the right files. We need to get the files that are supposed to be there normally, particularly with C. Now, I'm assuming that this Xbox was probably modded or attempted to be modded, and somewhere along the line, the dashboard files were damaged or corrupted. So I'm going to focus on rebuilding the C drive. Now, someone has provided a nice template for what should be in the C and E partitions on your Xbox hard drive. And there is this file called cnd.zip. You download this file, and when you decompress it, you get a C and an E directory. In the C directory, we have some root directory files, including Microsoft Dashboard, Xbox Dashboard, Evox Dashboard, and a number of other important files, and a number of subdirectories, including, dealing with fonts and skins, so forth. And in the E directory, we have a number of subfolders that are also important. So we're going to copy the contents of this and this onto their corresponding C and E directories on the Xbox Maker 1.9 directories. Okay, here we are back at the Xbox HD Maker 1.9. And now in our C directory, we have those files that we just copied over. E, same thing. And of course, in our EEPROM, we've got the EEPROM.bin. Now, we are ready to go ahead and convert this to an ISO file so that we can burn it onto a CD. The way they recommend doing it is to bring this up in a DOS window and then launch the make ISO win.bat file. So we go to our program list and then we find Windows System. You go down to command prompt and you right click it, and let's launch it as run as administrator. Okay. And then you get this thing asking you if you want to make changes. Well, yes, we do. And we get the prompt window. Now, first thing we're going to have to do is navigate to the location of that file. I've gone ahead and I've navigated to this directory where that ISO making program is located. Now we have to enter the name of that program. Okay, now with that all typed in, we go ahead and hit the enter key. And it's finished. Now that we have this ISO file, we can go ahead and burn that to a CD. There's any number of programs that can do that for you. The program I like to use is called Power ISO. Just go ahead and click burn. And it just takes a few minutes. Okay, we have completed our bootable Linux CD with hopefully the files we need to rejuvenate our troubled Xbox. Okay, let's see if this does the trick. Here we are back at the Xbox, and here's our IDE disk drive and our IDE optical drive. Before 2005, IDE was the standard. Everything had IDE cables in them. Now, starting in 2005, we started getting SATA drives. So from about 2005 to 2008, you would typically see a mix of both SATA and IDE sockets on motherboards. After 2008, all you see is SATA. So to do the hot swap, we're going to need a computer which is at least as old as 2008 and preferably older. Now what we have here is an old Hewlett-Packard from 2004, and it has just 2 IDE sockets. It has no SATA sockets. This does work. What you have to do is disconnect the IDE cable from the hard drive, but leave the IDE cable to the optical drive. We're going to boot our CD from the optical drive. Now what we're going to do is while the Xbox is actually running, we are going to disconnect the IDE cable from the running drive. I know that sounds kind of dangerous. And then we're going to connect the IDE cable from the computer. Why are we doing that? Well, because this drive is locked. You can't read or write to this drive. We have to unlock it with the Xbox. The key to unlock this drive is on the firmware. Once we start the Xbox, it will automatically unlock the disk drive. And with the drive unlocked, but still powered up, we can pull this IDE cable and we can attach this IDE cable from the computer, and now we can read the files on the hard drive and we can write to the hard drive. And once we do that, we then reconnect the cable from the Xbox. And we should have the files on there that we need. And hopefully we will bring this thing back to life. This has to be the primary IDE cable. Apparently if you try to run it off some other, like a secondary or something, it's not going to work. So it's got to be it has to be the primary and it has to be the master. So it's got to be this one here. Now I tried this on a later motherboard, a motherboard from 2008. I tried this with a motherboard that had a mix of 4 SATAs and 1 IDE, and I couldn't get it to work. It just had trouble recognizing this as the master primary. So I had to go back to this computer from 2004, which has just 2 IDEs and no SATAs. That way it does work. So we're going to demonstrate that now. Now the first thing we have to do here on our Xbox is we have to disconnect the IDE cable from the optical drive. Now the Xbox, of course, is still turned off. We're just going to go ahead and pull that IDE cable out of the back of the optical drive. Carefully not to bend pins. Okay. What will happen now is it will boot up, but it will stop with an error 12 instead of an error 16. Okay, we have halted at error 12. Now I have inserted the bootable CD into the computer. We're going to start it up, but we want to stop it before it checks for the peripherals. Okay. Now we go ahead and start our computer, and we start it with a pause break at the first screen. Okay. Now we come up to this first screen, and I hit pause break, and that froze the computer. The computer is now on, but it hasn't checked for peripherals yet. Now we're going to do our hot swap. Now, by necessity, of course, the computer has to be parked right next to the Xbox so that the cables can reach. And now we are going to gently pull out the data cable, the IDE cable from the Xbox. Okay. We're going to take the IDE cable from the PC now. We're going to plug it into the IDE connector on the hard drive. Okay, so now our computer is now connected to the unlocked disk drive. Back to our computer screen, we just hit any key to proceed with the boot up. And now it goes out and finds it, and it found our hard drive, you see. And this is the screen we get. Xbox Maker and Recovery Tool. So our computer has booted off the CD. We're going to go with selection 1, boot VJ console with Xbox Drive Utilities. We're going to type XBOXHD and enter. Now it gives us some cautionary notes and asks us if we wish to continue. Type, don't just type Y, type YES, enter. Now it gives us a choice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick number 2. I want to rebuild the C partition. I'm going to bet that the problem is isolated to the C partition, specifically damaged or missing dashboard files. So we're going to go ahead and select 2. Again, another cautionary note. Do we want to proceed? Again, type yes. It's found an Xbox dash file. Continue copying. We're going to say yes again. Okay, that's it. It has rebuilt the C partition. Let's see if it worked. Now back at the Xbox, I'm going to go ahead and remove the IDE cable from the PC. And I'm going to reconnect the Xbox's own cable back to the hard drive. And our hot swap is complete. So we will go ahead and turn off our Xbox now and reconnect the optical drive, and we will go ahead and turn off the personal computer. We no longer need it. And the Xbox is now turned off. And we shall reconnect the IDE cable to the optical drive. Okay. Disk drive and optical drive are both reconnected. Ready to start it up. And hopefully we will boot normally without any error 16 or error 12. Aha! We appear to be successful. Our Xbox is back to life. We've bypassed error 16. We've got the C drive rebuilt. And all is good again. I take no credit for all of the great software work that so many people have done to make this possible. The reason I made this video is because I had seen several others on this same topic, and they really weren't very well made, and I found them very hard to follow. So I thought I would make one that was a little slower and a little more detailed for newbies like myself. Again, I've never owned an Xbox before. I just acquired this thing, and this is all new to me. If you encountered the same problems that I did, I hope this video was of some assistance to you. Thanks for watching.